Hey guys, and welcome back to PM&R Tutorials. In this lecture, we take a deep dive into spinal cord injury. So, let's get started. When we talk about spinal cord injury or SCI, we are referring to an injury to the spinal cord that results in partial or complete loss of motor, sensory, and/or autonomic function below the level of the lesion. From a PM&R perspective, SCI is not a rare condition confined to trauma centers. It is a lifelong condition that intersects rehabilitation medicine, public health, and health systems. Now that we know the definition of SCI, let's focus on its epidemiology. In the U.S., it is estimated that approximately 17,000 to 18,000 new spinal cord injuries occur each year. This translates to an incidence of roughly 50 to 60 cases per million population per year. In terms of prevalence, more than 300,000 individuals are currently living with SCI in the United States. These numbers are important because they reflect not just acute injuries, but a growing population of long-term survivors who require ongoing rehabilitation, medical care, and secondary complication management, core domains of PM&R practice. Now, regarding demographics, spinal cord injury demonstrates a marked sex disparity, with males accounting for approximately 75 to 80% of new SCI cases in the United States. This male predominance is observed across nearly all age groups and injury mechanisms, particularly in younger populations where high-energy trauma such as motor vehicle collisions, sports injuries, and violence are more common. In contrast, the proportion of female patients with SCI increases with advancing age, largely due to a higher incidence of fall-related injuries in older adults. Now, regarding age, SCI was historically a condition predominantly of young adults, especially males in their teens and 20s. However, this epidemiology has shifted significantly and now assumes a bimodal distribution. While younger adults remain affected, there is now a second peak in older adults, particularly those over age 60. This change reflects an aging population and an increase in fall-related injuries among older individuals. For PM&R residents, this means managing SCI not only in previously healthy young trauma patients, but also in older adults with pre-existing comorbidities, frailty, and degenerative spine disease. When we classify spinal cord injury by neurologic level, epidemiologic data reveal important trends. Cervical injuries are the most common, accounting for more than half of all new SCI cases. Within the cervical region, injuries are not evenly distributed. The lower cervical levels, particularly C4 through C7, are the most frequently affected, with C5 and C6 consistently reported as the single most common neurologic levels of injury. This distribution reflects both biomechanics and injury mechanisms. The lower cervical spine represents a transitional zone between the relatively mobile head-neck complex and the more rigid thoracic spine, making it particularly vulnerable during hyperextension and flexion injuries, such as those seen in motor vehicle collisions and falls. In older adults, cervical spondylosis and spinal canal narrowing further predispose this region to injury, even with relatively low-energy trauma. As a result, tetraplegia is more common than paraplegia in the U.S. After the cervical spine, thoracic injuries the second most common, with the thoracolumbar junction being the most frequently affected region. This area is biomechanically vulnerable because it represents a transition from the rigid, rib-stabilized thoracic spine to the more mobile lumbar spine. Lumbar and sacral neurologic injuries are less common as true spinal cord injuries, in part because the spinal cord typically terminates at L1 to L2, with injuries below this level affecting the cauda equina rather than the cord itself. Overall, incomplete injuries now outnumber complete injuries at nearly all neurologic levels, a shift attributed to advances in pre-hospital care, early spinal stabilization, prompt surgical decompression, and improved critical care survival. From a rehabilitation standpoint, this epidemiologic shift has profound implications, as these patients often retain meaningful upper extremity function and demonstrate greater potential for functional recovery, independence, and community reintegration. Central cord syndrome has become increasingly prevalent, and is now the most common incomplete SCI syndrome. This pattern is strongly associated with falls in older adults, where hyperextension injuries occur on a background of degenerative cervical stenosis. Survival after SCI has improved dramatically over the past several decades, but life expectancy remains reduced compared to the general population, particularly for individuals with high-level and complete injuries. The highest mortality risk occurs in the first year after injury, especially in patients with high cervical and complete injuries. This early period reflects the physiologic shock of SCI itself with respiratory compromise, autonomic instability, infections, and complications of polytrauma. After this early period, survival curves tend to flatten for those who survive, and once patients move into the chronic phase, life expectancy improves substantially, though it rarely fully normalizes. The leading cause of death after SCI is respiratory disease, particularly pneumonia and other pulmonary infections. This is especially true for individuals with cervical and high thoracic injuries, where impaired diaphragmatic function, weak cough, reduced chest wall compliance, and autonomic dysfunction all converge to create chronic pulmonary vulnerability. Even decades after injury, respiratory complications can be a cause of mortality. This is why aggressive pulmonary hygiene, vaccination, early treatment of infections, and respiratory muscle training can be life-preserving interventions. The second leading cause of death is cardiovascular disease. Over time, as people get older, they can develop a high burden of cardiometabolic risk factors: physical inactivity, increased visceral fat, insulin resistance, dyslipidemia, and chronic low-grade inflammation. So, as survival improves and the SCI population ages, cardiovascular disease increases. For PM&R physicians, the practical takeaway is this: rehabilitation can influence the survival of these patients. Because optimizing respiratory mechanics, promoting lifelong physical activity, managing autonomic dysfunction, and aggressively addressing cardiometabolic risk factors are not just about function or quality of life. They are essential to extending life expectancy after SCI.